Dad, they're planning to kill you. Every executive at the polished oak table froze. Forks stopped midair, champagne flutes trembled in fingers, and even the scrolling graphs on the screen felt suddenly irrelevant. Then, like thunder following lightning, came the scream. Run, Dad, run. The glass doors of the Kingsley Energy Tech boardroom burst open as Anna, a 10-year-old black girl with fierce eyes and a high ponytail, stormed in with the force of a hurricane. Her sneakers squeaked across the marble floor, and her tiny frame shook with rage and desperation. Jonathan Kingsley, 65 years old, founder and CEO of the trillion-dollar energy empire, turned slowly, stunned. The blood drained from his face. "Anna?" he whispered. "What are you?" But she didn't let him finish. "You have to get out. They're doing it now. They're going to take you out tonight, he is," she shouted, pointing directly at Graham Wells, his long-trusted assistant. The room exploded into motion. Chairs scraped backward. Confused murmurs filled the space like rising smoke. The tension was no longer just awkward, it was explosive. Anna turned her finger like a loaded gun on the others. "Mr. Delaney, stop looking so smug. I heard you on the call. You said, 'Let the old man fall. We'll clean up the ashes.' And you, Miss Rhodes, you passed the folder with the forged documents. I saw you. I have it on camera. All of you think you're safe because you're rich and white and quiet." Security moved. Two men in suits appeared at the doorway, stepping toward her. "Mr. Kingsley, shall we?" "No one touches her," Jonathan roared, his voice slicing the air. He stepped between them, his eyes furious. "Anna, enough of this. You're scaring people. What the hell is going on?" Anna's chest heaved. Her voice cracked but stayed strong. "You think I'm lying?" She marched toward the table. "Look at your glass, the one next to your right hand. That's not your usual bourbon. That's been dosed. I smelled the almond. Someone crushed lorazepam into it. I found the wrapper in the executive restroom trash." She pulled a crumpled silver foil from her hoodie pocket and slammed it on the table. "You want proof?" Her gaze locked on Graham. "Drink it." "What?" Graham barked, laughing nervously. "This is ridiculous. She's a child. Jonathan, let's just—" "Drink it." The room went silent. Jonathan looked at the glass, then at Graham. The man's palms were sweating. "No? Why not?" Anna pressed. "What are you afraid of?" Graham's mouth opened, then closed. He reached for the glass, but his hand stopped just short. Everyone saw the tremor in his fingers. The forced smile crumbling. "He won't drink it," Anna said coldly, "because he knows what's in it." The room shifted from skepticism to panic. Delaney stood up too fast and knocked over his chair. Rhodes was already edging toward the door. And then Anna turned to her father again, this time calm, composed, deadly certain. "Do you remember the teddy bear I gave you on your birthday? The one that sits on your desk?" Jonathan blinked. "Yes," he said slowly. "Why?" "Pick it up. Turn it around. Under the bow tie." His hands moved like they didn't belong to him. He reached over, lifted the plush bear from the credenza, flipped it over and found a tiny, almost invisible pinhole camera. "Joe from facilities helped me install it," Anna said, softening just slightly. "He was NYPD before he was janitor. I didn't know who to trust, but I trusted him." If you felt a connection with Anna and her courage, give this video a like to show your support. And drop a comment telling us where you're watching from, who knows. Someone nearby might be watching too. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories like this one. Jonathan stared at her, this girl he had taken in on instinct, this brilliant child who once couldn't make eye contact, now standing in front of boardroom elites like a prophet with fire in her lungs. "Play it," she said. "Play what it recorded last night." One of the IT staff watching from the corner of the room stepped forward, trembling. Jonathan nodded. Seconds later, Graham's voice filled the room from the conference screen. "The old man's not going to make it to next quarter. We'll make it look natural. Slip something into his drink before the quarterly call. Delaney's already set up the transition clause. Rhodes handles PR. It'll look like retirement. Smooth, clean, dead silence." Graham's face turned to stone. Delaney slumped into his chair. Rhodes clutched her pearls and whispered something inaudible. Jonathan looked like he had aged 10 years in a moment. He sank into his chair, the weight of betrayal anchoring his every limb. Anna stood motionless, eyes wide but dry. Finally, Jonathan whispered, "How long have you known?" "I didn't know everything," she said. "I just knew something was wrong, and no one was listening." He looked at her, then at the shattered illusions around him. He reached out, pulled her close. "You were listening when it mattered." And then his voice changed. "Security." "Yes, Mr. Kingsley?" one of the guards answered, stepping forward. "Seal this room. No one leaves. Lock every exit." "No." "Yes, sir." "And call the police," he said, eyes still on Graham. Right now, no one in the room moved, but every heart pounded like a war drum. Because justice, real, raw, and unflinching, had just entered the building. And it came with the voice of a little girl. The metallic click of the boardroom doors locking echoed like a shot through the marble hallways of Kingsley Tower. The security guards moved swiftly, stationing themselves at each exit. The board members sat frozen, their carefully cultivated images collapsing under the weight of exposure. For once, their money couldn't buy them a way out. Jonathan Kingsley remained in his chair, arms crossed, his gaze fixed on Graham. The assistant's jaw was clenched, sweat beading across his brow. Gone was the polished calm, the quiet authority he had worn like a second skin for over 2 decades. Now, he looked like a man who knew his world was unraveling. Anna sat beside her father, hands still folded in her lap, eyes steady. She had not cried. Not when security tried to remove her, not when her father raised his voice, not even when the recording played. There was something about her silence collected, unyielding, that unnerved the entire room more than shouting ever could. "You bugged my office?" Graham's voice finally broke through, low and hoarse. "I protected my family," Jonathan answered coldly. "Something you clearly had no interest in doing." The man's mouth twitched, but he said nothing. A guard entered the room, holding a phone. "NYPD is en route, Mr. Kingsley. ETA. 8 minutes. "Good," Jonathan said, nodding. "Until then, no one leaves. No one speaks to anyone. Not their assistants. Not their attorneys. Not their PR teams. You all sit still and breathe in your own betrayal." Rhodes whimpered softly. Delaney rubbed his temples, whispering something about needing heart medication. Jonathan stood, his body moving like it had carried weight for too long. "Anna," he said, his tone softening. "Come with me." She hesitated. "It's okay," he added gently. "Just to my office. We can talk." She stood, her steps small and cautious, following her father through the heavy doors. Once outside the boardroom, the noise faded to a muted hum behind steel and glass. The hallways were quiet, almost eerily so. They walked side by side down the corridor, the click of his shoes and the soft scuff of her sneakers falling into rhythm. In his office, Jonathan closed the door behind them and turned to face her. "I owe you more than an apology," he said. She didn't respond immediately, just glanced around the room. Her eyes paused on the teddy bear she had gifted him months ago. It sat back in place, almost innocent now that its secret was exposed. "I didn't know who to trust," she said finally. "Even you." That hit harder than the accusation. Jonathan sat down slowly on the edge of his leather couch. "You were right, not to. I wasn't trying to spy. I kept hearing things. Conversations that stopped when I entered the room. People staring. I thought maybe I was paranoid at first." Jonathan nodded slowly. "You weren't. They said you wouldn't live to see the next board meeting. I thought maybe they were joking at first. But then I saw Delaney's memo in the printer queue dated 3 days from now, signed by him as acting CEO. And then the water thing happened." "The drink," Jonathan murmured. "I tested the wrapper with Joe's help. We looked up the chemical residue on his old police equipment. It matched prescription tranquilizers." Jonathan leaned forward, elbows on his knees, staring at the carpet. "Joe, you mentioned him earlier. He used to be nifty, worked narcotics. Said he owed you something from way back. I asked him to help me because I didn't know what else to do." "You were never supposed to be in danger," Jonathan said quietly. "I brought you into this life to give you safety." "I don't need safety," Anna replied, her voice firm. "I need truth, and I need you alive." That shook something in him. The room blurred slightly. His breath caught. "Do you regret it?" she asked suddenly. "Adopting me?" The question came like a knife between his ribs. "No," he said, not even blinking. "Never. You gave me back something I didn't know I'd lost." "What?" "Purpose." Silence settled over them again, softer this time. He reached over and took her hand, small and warm in his. "I've made enemies in my life, Anna. You exposed the worst of them tonight. But the thing I regret most is that I didn't listen to you right away." She nodded. "You're listening now." Suddenly, there was a knock on the office door. A security guard entered. "Sir, the police are here. They're taking statements. They'd like to speak with you first." Jonathan stood. "Tell them I'll be right there." As the guard nodded and left, Jonathan turned back to Anna. "You don't have to come out there again. You've done enough." "I want to stay." "Why?" "Because they need to see I'm not afraid of them." He smiled, proud, pained. "You're your mother's fire." Whoever she was. Anna's eyes flickered. She had never asked about her biological parents, but tonight, maybe for the first time, she understood that family wasn't built on blood. It was built on choice, on love, and on standing in the storm for each other. "Come on," Jonathan said, straightening his shoulders. "Let's go finish what you started." They walked back to the boardroom together, not as billionaire and adopted child, not as boss and disruptor, but as something stronger, as a father and daughter bonded by truth. And outside, in the heart of Manhattan, sirens began to rise, echoing off the glass towers, justice rushing up the elevator. The glass doors of the boardroom stood open now, no longer the guarded threshold of power they had been just an hour earlier. Inside, the atmosphere had shifted from arrogance to paralysis. Uniformed NYPD officers moved deliberately between chairs and documents, their calm efficiency slicing through the pretension like a scalpel. Anna entered first, walking just ahead of Jonathan. Her chin was high, her stride firm, though her fingers trembled slightly at her sides. Jonathan watched her, awed by the contrast. A child in size, a storm in presence. Detective Marissa Doyle, mid-52nd, salt and pepper curls and a steel-trap stare, turned as they approached. She extended her hand to Jonathan. "Mr. Kingsley, we've secured the room. Everyone's being interviewed separately." "Good," he said, his voice even but tight. "Anna stays with me." Doyle gave Anna a quick glance. "Is this the girl who brought forward the evidence?" "Yes," Jonathan replied, "and she's the reason I'm standing here right now." Doyle nodded once, her gaze softening for just a second. "Then she's not just staying. She's a key witness." Inside the boardroom, Delaney sat hunched in his seat, looking far smaller than he had earlier. Rhodes kept her arms folded, lips pursed like she was still trying to control the narrative. And Graham Wells sat motionless, eyes unfocused, jaw set like he'd braced for collapse. Doyle's partner, Officer Reggie Simmons, stepped forward with a folder. "Preliminary check confirms the voice in the recording matches Graham Wells. We'll need full access to company servers to corroborate email trails and call logs." "You'll have it," Jonathan said without hesitation. Anna stood beside him, silent but watchful. Doyle turned to her. "Anna, can you tell me how you got access to the Bear camera feed?" "I installed it myself. Wired it into the backup power supply on the desk. The footage backs up to a cloud account I created. I have the login." Jonathan blinked. "You did all that yourself?" "I read," she said simply. "A lot." Doyle raised an eyebrow. "You should consider working for us when you're older." Anna didn't answer, but the corner of her mouth twitched a brief, reluctant smile. Then she looked at Graham. "I used to think you were just cold," she said quietly. "But now I see you were calculating. You smiled at him every day knowing what you planned." Graham didn't respond. His gaze was on the floor. "You held my backpack once when I dropped it," Anna continued. "You told me you liked the pins I'd put on it. Did you mean that? Or were you just rehearsing how to pretend you cared?" Jonathan put a hand gently on her shoulder. Doyle stepped in. "Mr. Wells, for the record, you have the right to remain silent." "Anything you say, I know my rights," he interrupted, voice raspy. "And I want my lawyer." "You'll get one," she replied, "but you'll be leaving with us." Two officers approached, and as they moved to cuff Graham, he finally looked at Jonathan. "I built this company with you," he said. 23 years. I gave you everything, and then you tried to take everything from me," Jonathan said, his voice steel, "including my life." They were going to force a merger. You were in the way. You're old, Jonathan. They were going to oust you anyway, so you thought you'd help them speed it up? I thought I deserved the legacy. I thought if I played it right, I could shape the company's future. Jonathan stepped closer. You would have buried it in betrayal. They took Graham away. As the door clicked behind them, the room let out a long breath, like it had been holding itself together on the edge of collapse. Jonathan turned back to the remaining board members. "The rest of you," he said coldly, "will face your own audits, both legal and ethical. I've already initiated a full independent investigation. If you knew and said nothing, your silence is complicity." Delaney opened his mouth to argue but thought better of it. Rhodes just lowered her eyes. Jonathan turned to Doyle. "Thank you, Detective. Whatever resources you need, my team will provide. I want no shadows left behind." As the officers began collecting evidence and escorting witnesses out, Jonathan looked at Anna again. She was staring at the empty chair where Graham had sat. "He used to give me mints," she said I reminded him of his niece. Jonathan kneeled beside her. "People wear masks, Anna. Some so convincing, they fool even themselves. But you saw past it. You held the line." She looked at him, eyes suddenly glassy. "I was so scared." "I know," he said softly, "and I didn't listen fast enough. You did when it counted." Outside, the hallway was lined with employees staring in shock and whispers. Rumors had already started their wildfire crawl. But in that moment, with his hand on Anna's shoulder, Jonathan didn't care. He looked down at her. "Come home. Let's just go home." As they walked out of the boardroom, cameras flashing behind distant corners, a quiet calm fell between them. Not the silence of tension but of survival, of trust rebuilt in the fire. Down in the lobby, people stepped aside to let them through. Not because he was the billionaire, but because she was the child who saved him. The elevator opened. Anna stepped inside first. Jonathan followed. But before the doors closed, he looked back once at the tower he'd built. Now cracked with betrayal. He exhaled, then the doors slid shut. Justice had arrived, but the reckoning was just beginning. The heavy oak door of Jonathan's penthouse swung open with a familiar creak. The apartment, perched high above the Hudson, was bathed in the late evening amber of New York's skyline. Normally, this was a place of retreat, polished marble floors, shelves of rare books, art on every wall, but tonight it felt like walking into a shell. Anna stepped in first, holding her stuffed backpack against her chest. She wasn't clutching it out of fear. She was holding it like it carried the weight of the truth proof she had once needed when no one else listened. Jonathan followed, moving slower than usual. The exhaustion wasn't just physical. Betrayal leaves a different kind of fatigue. He closed the door behind them and leaned against it for a second longer than necessary. Then he peeled off his suit jacket, dropped it onto the back of the nearest armchair, and loosened his tie. "Do you want dinner?" he asked. Anna hesitated. "Only if you're hungry." He smiled tiredly. "I could eat." She nodded, set down her bag, and padded into the kitchen. Jonathan followed, his steps echoing on the tiled floor. The kitchen open, spotless, with high-end appliances that rarely saw use suddenly felt alive. Anna reached for a small Dutch oven on the back burner. "I made soup," she said, almost shyly. "Last night. Before I heard everything." "You cooked?" He blinked. "I like to," she replied. "I was nervous about the board meeting. I wanted to do something normal." She ladled the contents into 2 bowls, simple chicken and vegetable. The scent of rosemary and garlic filled the space, grounding it. They sat together at the small breakfast nook, the city shimmering silently beyond the windows. For a while, neither spoke. They just ate. It wasn't until Jonathan had taken a few spoonfuls that he finally broke the silence. "How did you know what to do?" he asked. "With the camera. With all of it. The recording, the drink, everything." Anna paused. "I didn't know." I just paid attention. She stirred her soup. People think kids don't notice, but we see everything. I saw the way Mr. Wells looked at your chair when you weren't in it. Like he was measuring it. Jonathan's jaw clenched. And Miss Rhodes, she kept talking over you during those dinners, correcting you in front of the others. Delaney kept asking me about your health when you weren't around. Little things. You connected all the dots. I kept a notebook, she said. Wrote it all down. Joe helped me put things together. He said, once you know what you're looking for, the lies fall apart fast. Jonathan chuckled softly. Joe was right. She looked up. Do you think I did something wrong? Spying like that? No, he said without hesitation. You did what no one else had the courage to do. You stood up for the truth when every adult in that room was pretending not to see it. Her lips pressed together, the emotion creeping back in. He reached over and took her hand. You saved my life, Anna. That's not something I'll ever forget. A long pause. She finally whispered, I didn't want to lose you. You didn't, he said, squeezing her fingers. You never will. Later. After they cleaned up the kitchen and settled into the den, Anna curled up on the leather couch, hugging a pillow. Jonathan sat nearby in his favorite armchair, staring at the muted television. News coverage of the corporate betrayal was already starting to trickle into headlines. Billionaire CEO nearly poisoned in hostile takeover attempt. Insider coup at Kingsley Energy Tech, thwarted by adopted daughter. She's only 10, who is Anna Kingsley? Jonathan shook his head. They're going to come for you now, he said softly. Reporters. Blogs. People trying to spin your story. Anna didn't look worried. I don't care if they talk. As long as you know the truth. I do, he said. But I want you protected. I'll hire private security. You don't have to treat me like I'm glass. You're not glass, he said. You're iron. But even iron can be attacked. She gave a tiny nod, understanding more than her age should allow. Outside, the sky deepened into navy. The city lights flickered like constellations fallen to earth. Jonathan stood and crossed the room to the far corner, where a statue stood on a pedestal, an abstract marble piece titled, Justice in Motion. He had always admired it. The balance. The motion, the rawness of the lines. But now, looking at it, he saw something else. He gripped the edge and tipped it over. The crash echoed through the room like thunder. Anna flinched, then stared at him, wide-eyed. I bought that piece because it reminded me of how I built this company, he said. But it was a lie. He looked at the shards across the floor. Justice isn't balanced. It's not quiet. It's not poised on a marble pedestal. He turned to her. Justice is loud, messy, carried by girls with backpacks and hearts too big for their bodies. Anna didn't speak. But she stood, walked over, and wrapped her arms around his waist. I like that version better anyway, she said into his chest. He held her close, his eyes burning. For the first time in years, Jonathan Kingsley, man of logic, empires, and skyscrapers, allowed himself to feel something more than strategy. Have felt grateful. Tomorrow would bring lawyers, headlines, and chaos. But tonight, in this penthouse, there was peace, and a new kind of power being born, built not from profit, but from truth, from soup and surveillance, from a child who refused to be quiet, from Anna, his daughter, his storm, his savior. Morning light spilled through the tall windows of the Kingsley penthouse, casting golden stripes across the floor. The city below stirred awake taxi horns, the distant wail of sirens, the rhythm of a metropolis too busy to pause. But inside, a rare quiet lingered. Jonathan stood in the kitchen, sipping coffee from a plain white mug. He looked smaller somehow, wearing jeans and a simple button-down shirt, no tie, no armor of boardroom power. On the island counter beside him sat a stack of newspapers, each splashed with his name and Anna's face. The girl who stopped a coup. From orphan to heroine. Who is Anna Kingsley? He flipped one over with a sigh. Sensationalism always found its teeth in a crisis. Anna entered barefoot, her oversized hoodie brushing the backs of her knees. Her hair was still slightly tousled from sleep, but her eyes were sharp. They spelled my name wrong, she muttered, grabbing an apple. Jonathan chuckled. You're already critiquing the media. That didn't take long. She smirked but didn't look up. What happens now? He leaned against the counter. The interim board has called for an emergency meeting today. They want answers. Investors are nervous. Legal teams are circling. Are they going to try and blame you for what happened? Jonathan raised his eyebrows. That's the irony, isn't it? I was the target. And yet somehow, I'll still have to defend myself. Anna took a bite of her apple and chewed slowly. Do I need to come? No, he said, pausing. But if you want to, I'd like that. She glanced up at him, then nodded once. Okay. Later that morning, the Kingsley Energy Tech crisis room normally reserved for natural disaster responses or emergency outages buzzed with tension. Executives, legal advisors, shareholder representatives, and media liaisons filled the space. But all eyes shifted when Jonathan entered, and even more so when Anna walked in beside him. She wore a dark green blazer over her hoodie and jeans. It didn't match, but it didn't have to. She wasn't there to impress them. She was there because she belonged. Let's begin, said Lisa Morano, the interim board chair. Her tone was clipped. Mr. Kingsley, we've reviewed the footage provided by your internal systems, and the voice analysis confirms Mr. Wells's identity. We're stunned. Jonathan nodded once. So was I. Do you believe any other board members were actively involved in the plot? He looked around the room, letting the silence stretch. I believe several people knew something was wrong and chose to say nothing. Murmurs rippled through the room. A few avoided eye contact. Lisa cleared her throat. This company has weathered many storms, Jonathan. But this is different. Public confidence is shaken. Our shareholders are. My daughter saved this company. Jonathan cut in. While grown adults sat silent, a 10-year-old girl took action. Let that be our starting point. Anna looked straight ahead, unmoved by the sudden attention. Her eyes scanned the room like a chess player studying the board. Lisa continued, more careful now. We're prepared to launch an independent investigation. But the media storm will require swift strategic communication. We need to shape the narrative. No, Jonathan said. We need to tell the truth. The truth isn't always marketable. But it's always right, Anna said softly. Several heads turned. Jonathan smiled faintly. I'll be making a public statement tonight. Transparent. Unfiltered. If that costs us shares, so be it. I won't build profit on silence ever again. The room fell quiet. After the meeting, as they rode the elevator back down, Anna stared at the numbers counting downward. Do you think they'll fire you? She asked. He laughed, but it was dry. They can't fire me. I am the company. Then what are they trying to do? Control the fallout, manage perception, keep investors happy. Same game, different day. Are you tired of playing it? Jonathan looked at her, then out through the elevator's glass wall to the city beyond. I'm tired of pretending that power has to mean fear. That control is more important than character. Anna nodded slowly. Then maybe it's time to change the game. Back at the penthouse, Jonathan received a call from a name he hadn't seen in years, Elliot Kramer, a retired civil rights attorney who once represented whistleblowers and government witnesses. He'd seen Anna's story on the news. Your daughter's a force of nature, Elliot said. She is, Jonathan replied proudly. I want to represent her voluntarily. If this thing goes national, she'll need someone sharp in her corner. Jonathan agreed. That night, as camera crews set up outside Kingsley Tower and live news feeds buzzed with anticipation, Jonathan stood behind a podium in the lobby. But instead of delivering a polished corporate speech, he stepped aside and gestured for Anna. She approached the mic slowly. I don't have a speech, she said, but I have something to say. Reporters leaned in. I did what I did because I was scared, not because I'm brave, but sometimes being scared is what makes you pay attention. I listened. I saw things. I told the truth. A hush spread across the room, and I hope other kids, other people do the same. Even if no one believes you at first, even if you're small. Jonathan joined her at the mic. She saved my life. And maybe, just maybe, she saved this company too. As flashes lit up the lobby and reporters fired questions, Anna took her father's hand again. This time, it wasn't to protect him. It was to stand beside him as equals, in a world that finally started listening. The next morning arrived not with the fanfare of headlines, but with an eerie calm. Jonathan sat in the kitchen again, a black ceramic mug warming his fingers. This time, it wasn't filled with strong, bitter coffee, it was tea. Chamomile. Anna's suggestion. She sat across from him, cereal in front of her, barely touched. Outside the windows, the skyline shimmered under a pale sun, and a fresh layer of tension hung in the air. "You didn't sleep," she said without looking up. "Neither did you," he replied gently. Anna stirred her cereal, then glanced at the tablet on the counter beside him. A dozen new articles flashed across the screen. Kingsley heiress exposes boardroom conspiracy. She read one headline aloud. "They're calling me the heiress. That's not even what happened." Jonathan smirked. "You're technically my heir if we're being formal. I didn't do this for the company," she said. "I did it for you." "I know." They ate in silence a little longer before a soft knock at the door interrupted their rhythm. It was Joe, tall, lean, worn around the eyes but still sharp. Joe had the quiet confidence of someone who'd lived through too many things to be impressed by much anymore. He stepped in, nodded to Jonathan, then gave Anna a warm, fatherly smile. "Hey, soldier," he said. "Hey, Joe." He handed Jonathan a slim manila envelope. "Your hunch about the offshore accounts was right. We traced 2 wire transfers from a shell company connected to Rhodes to a firm in the Caymans. They line up with the dates you mentioned." Jonathan whistled low. "That's going to bury her." Joe nodded. "Delaney too." He signed off on at least one of the internal memos approving a suspicious vendor contract. "Looks like it was a cover for legal fees in the event of a lawsuit." "No." Anna tilted her head. "They were already planning the fallout?" "People like that always do," Joe replied. "They bet on silence. On fear." Jonathan leaned back in his chair. "What about Graham? He's lawyering up hard, but the DA has enough for a conspiracy charge, and the press is making it harder for anyone to cut backroom deals." Anna stood up and walked to the window, arms folded. "I thought I'd feel better," she said quietly. Jonathan and Joe exchanged a glance. "It doesn't feel like justice yet, does it?" Joe asked. "No," she replied. "It just feels like the noise changed shape." Jonathan joined her at the window. "Justice doesn't always feel like fireworks, Anna. Sometimes it feels like exhaustion. Like standing up straight when your legs shake." She nodded. A few hours later, Jonathan took Anna with him to the company headquarters, not through the underground entrance or the private elevator, but right through the front lobby. The security guards straightened as they entered. Receptionists paused mid-call. The man once known for precision and formality now walked in with a 10-year-old girl in sneakers and braids, hand in hand. In the 47th floor executive conference room, several mid-level managers and legal consultants were waiting. The room buzzed with urgency. "Mr. Kingsley," said Nora Pham, his newly promoted chief of legal affairs, "we've completed the initial review. The files Anna uncovered triggered a cascade. Other employees are coming forward now. Whistleblowers, assistants, even a few junior partners." "Good," he said. "Let the truth pour in." "And," Nora hesitated, then looked toward Anna. "There's a request from a reporter at The Atlantic. They want an interview." "With her." Jonathan stiffened. Anna looked up. "Do I have to?" "No," Jonathan said firmly. "Not unless you want to. I don't mind talking. I just don't want to become the girl who exposed them. Like that's the only thing I ever did." "You'll be whatever you decide to be," he said. "Not what the world names you." That night, Jonathan and Anna returned home to find a package waiting at the penthouse door. It was small, wrapped in brown paper with no return address. Inside, a single item, a wooden puzzle box. Anna examined it for a long moment before opening it. Inside was a note, handwritten in tight, even script. "You've made enemies. Careful whom you trust next." Beneath the note, a chess piece, a black queen. Jonathan went still. He picked up the piece and studied it. "Someone's playing games. Or warning us," Anna said. He looked at her. Do you recognize the handwriting? She shook her head. He pulled out his phone. We'll have Joe run forensics. Fingerprints, ink type, everything. Anna turned the chess piece over in her hand. Why a queen, she asked. Jonathan stared at her for a long time. Because the queen is the most powerful piece on the board. And she just declared herself. For the rest of the evening, tension sat between them like a third presence. Even the silence buzzed. But Anna never flinched. She kept the chess piece on her nightstand that night, not as a threat, but as a reminder. The game wasn't over. It had only just begun. Rain slid down the floor-to-ceiling windows of Kingsley Tower, turning the city into a blurred mosaic of brake lights and reflections. Inside the CEO's office, a tense stillness replaced the usual controlled elegance. Anna sat cross-legged on the leather sofa, a legal pad on her lap, sketching absent-mindedly. She wasn't drawing flowers or clouds. She was drawing floor plans, rooms, corners, exits. Jonathan stood at his desk, reading the preliminary forensic report Joe had dropped off that morning. No fingerprints on the puzzle box. The ink matched a rare European brand. The chess piece was hand-carved, not mass-produced. Whoever had sent the warning knew exactly what message they were crafting and how to erase their trail. Anna broke the silence. What if it's someone inside the company again? Jonathan didn't look up. We're scrubbing every level. HR's running background checks, and Joe's team is cross-referencing vendor contracts with private intel groups. We'll find the leak. Anna set her pad down. What if they don't leave paper trails? Jonathan finally looked at her. Then we follow the people. Everyone talks eventually, especially when they're scared. His voice had changed calm, but steely. This wasn't the Jonathan who read her bedtime stories or made blueberry pancakes on Sundays. This was the man who'd built an empire in silence, who'd survived boardroom betrayals, and now stood prepared for war. But Anna wasn't scared. She was watching, learning. Do you think it's Rhodes? She asked. She's too polished for theatrics, he replied. Delaney doesn't have the spine. Wells is under lockdown. No. This feels like someone who's been in the shadows longer than we've realized. The intercom buzzed. Mr. Kingsley. Nora's voice came through. There's someone from the Department of Justice here to see you. A special investigator. Jonathan's eyes narrowed. Name? Gerald Pace. Anna's brow furrowed. That name sounds familiar. Jonathan pressed the intercom. Send him up. Minutes later, the door opened and in stepped a tall man in a beige trench coat. Glasses perched low on a sharp nose, his salt and pepper hair slicked back. Gerald Pace looked like he'd been plucked from an old crime noir novel, unassuming, polite, but with eyes that saw everything. Mr. Kingsley, he greeted coolly. Miss Kingsley. He nodded at Anna with a brief smile. You've heard the press, Jonathan said, motioning toward the seat across from his desk. I've read the internal memos, Pace replied, and seen the footage. My office wants to ensure this doesn't spiral beyond legal boundaries. We're considering federal racketeering charges if the conspiracy web is wide enough. Anna leaned forward. What do you need from us? Pace glanced at her, amused by the directness. Everything you haven't told the press. Jonathan slid a file across the desk. Every recording, every timeline. My head of security is compiling a map of digital breadcrumbs. Pace flipped through the pages. There's something missing. Anna blinked. What? Who tipped you off that something was wrong in the first place? Before the poison, before the camera. What made you start watching? Anna hesitated. I overheard a phone call. In the kitchen one night. Mr. Wells said, the old man won't know what hit him. I thought it was just boardroom talk. But then, she trailed off. Pace scribbled something into his notebook. I believe there's a deeper current here, he said. A larger play. Your company isn't just a clean energy front. It's connected to several key government grants. Someone may want control of your tech patents, your lobbying power. Jonathan's eyes sharpened. You think this isn't just corporate? Pace nodded. I think it's geopolitical. I think someone's pulling strings that go far beyond Kingsley Energy Tech. Anna stood up. Then we're going to need help. Pace smiled thinly. Yes. But be careful who you ask. Later that afternoon, while Jonathan met privately with security consultants, Anna returned to her room and retrieved her notebook. She flipped through pages of diagrams, voice transcripts, names circled in red. Her eyes landed on one name she hadn't thought about in weeks: Cameron Vance. He'd been a junior developer who left abruptly 6 months ago. She remembered him giving her extra marshmallows for her cocoa on late office nights. But more than that, she remembered the way he avoided looking anyone in the eye during meetings, like he was hiding. She checked her tablet. Nothing recent on his socials. His company email had been deactivated, but a comment buried in an old internal message thread caught her attention. Some games are rigged from the start. Best to fold and walk away. She narrowed her eyes. In the hallway, she heard her father's voice. He was on the phone, pacing. His tone was tense. I don't care what the buyout clause says. If they're laundering funds through my name, I want the FBI crawling through their servers. Anna closed her notebook. Cameron Vance might have walked away. But maybe, just maybe, he had more to say. That night, Anna sent an encrypted message through a secure app Joe had taught her to use. To Cameron V., last known. Subject: You once said the game was rigged. Maybe you're ready to deal. She hit send. Somewhere in the dark web of tech and betrayal, the board wasn't just a table anymore, it was a battlefield. And the smallest player? She was already 2 moves ahead. The reply came at 3:14 a.m. Anna's tablet vibrated softly on her nightstand. She blinked awake, heart already racing. In the stillness of the dark room, lit only by the dim glow of city lights bleeding through the blinds, she pulled the device closer and opened the message. Cameron V., last known. I didn't expect to hear from you. Not like this. Meet me tomorrow. No phones. No security. If you really want the truth, come alone. 4 p.m. Pier 12. Anna stared at the screen for a moment, her breath shallow. She climbed out of bed and tiptoed down the hallway. Jonathan's office door was closed, but a thin sliver of light glowed from beneath it. She knocked twice. Come in, his voice replied. He was at his desk, suit jacket discarded, sleeves rolled up, the same file from Gerald Pace open beside a tumbler of untouched whiskey. I got a message, Anna said, stepping inside. From Cameron Vance. Jonathan looked up sharply. That was fast. He wants to meet. Tomorrow. Alone. He stood. Absolutely not. I have to go, she said. He's not going to talk if he sees anyone else. He's scared. Jonathan ran a hand through his hair. You're a child. I'm not sending you into a possible setup alone. I won't be alone, she said. You'll be close, just not visible. He hesitated. I know you trust me, Dad. Trust me enough to let me finish what I started. He stared at her for a long time before finally exhaling. Joe will track the area. We'll plant comms in your jacket. But if anything feels wrong, I pull out, she finished. The next afternoon, the Hudson River glimmered under an overcast sky. Pier 12 was nearly abandoned old cargo containers rusting beside long-forgotten machinery. The wind carried a salty chill, and the only sound was the occasional seagull's cry. Anna stood near the edge of the dock, hoodie zipped up, small earpiece hidden beneath her braids. Comms check, came Joe's voice in her ear. Loud and clear, she whispered. Jonathan's voice followed. I'm in the car 2 blocks away. I'll come in if I have to. Then silence. At 4:06, a figure emerged from the shadows between 2 stacked containers. Cameron Vance looked older than Anna remembered. Gaunt. Nervous. His eyes darted around the pier like a hunted animal. He approached slowly. Hands visible. You came, he said. You asked, she replied. He gave a dry laugh. You always were blunt, just like your father. You worked for him. I worked under him, he corrected. Big difference. What happened, Cameron? He looked out at the water. You think the board tried to kill your dad just for power? For his seat? That's what they want you to believe. Anna's heart pounded. Then what was it? They were scared of what he found. The core project. The data. The new battery system he's been testing, self-healing nanocells. If he patented that, he'd bankrupt the fossil fuel lobby in 2 years. She blinked. I thought it was still in development. It's ready, Cameron said. Has been for months. But when he refused to sell the tech to an overseas bidder through a shell holding group, that's when things started unraveling. Anna clenched her fists. So this wasn't just greed, it was sabotage. They needed him out of the way. Not dead necessarily, just compromised. But someone got impatient. Cameron reached into his coat and pulled out a small flash drive. This is the original algorithm. The specs, the logs, everything. Anna stepped forward cautiously and took it. Why now? She asked. Because I'm done running, he said. And because someone sent me a chess piece last week. A white knight. With a note. Your move. Anna's blood ran cold. Do you know who sent it? Cameron shook his head. But they're not working alone. There's something bigger coming. A screech of tires in the distance made them both flinch. That's your cue, he said. Before she could ask more, he was already walking away, vanishing between the containers like a ghost. Back in the car, Jonathan drove them in silence until they reached the private data lab on the 19th floor of Kingsley Tower. Joe was already there, waiting by the terminal. Let's see what he gave us, Joe said. Anna handed over the drive. Within minutes, the room filled with blueprints, test logs, prototype timelines, and most damning internal memos detailing an offer from a Luxembourg-based energy conglomerate to purchase the tech under the table. It's all here, Joe murmured, enough to trigger a federal investigation. Anna leaned over the screen. One file caught her eye, a surveillance photo. Grainy. Black and white. Her father, exiting the building. A red cross marked his chest. The timestamp, 3 weeks before the board meeting. Jonathan's face hardened. That's not corporate espionage, he said. That's a kill order. Joe nodded grimly. We're dealing with more than greedy executives now. This is organized, funded, international. Oh. Anna stepped back from the screen. The world tilted slightly. Everything they thought they understood had just been shattered. She looked at her father. What do we do now? He reached for her hand. We go public. With everything. No more hiding. No more backroom deals. And if they come for us? Jonathan looked into her eyes. Then we remind them what happens when they try to silence the truth. That night, Anna sat in her room, the white knight chess piece Cameron had given her resting on her windowsill beside the Black Queen. She looked out over the city, whispered to herself, check. A storm rolled in over Manhattan the next morning, thunder crackling above Kingsley Tower like the growl of something ancient and furious. Rain streaked the windows in violent patterns, but inside the tower's data lab, the only sound was the quiet tapping of keys. Joe sat hunched over the terminal, his brow furrowed, eyes darting across cascading lines of encrypted code. Anna sat beside him, chewing on a pencil. The Black Queen and White Knight chess pieces now resting beside her notepad like silent sentries. Jonathan paced behind them, one hand on his hip, the other holding a disposable phone. His voice was calm, precise, issuing orders to legal teams, speaking in half sentences that only made sense to those fluent in corporate warfare. This is our proof, Joe said finally. Cameron's files show not only the sabotage, but direct communications between Delaney, Rhodes, and the foreign energy firm coded messages routed through offshore shell companies, burner emails. Some of these trace back to defense contractors. Jonathan leaned in. That explains the level of risk. This wasn't just about profits. They wanted to weaponize our tech. Anna frowned. You mean, they wanted to sell the battery system to the military? Worse, Joe replied. To whoever paid the highest price. Energy independence is power. And someone was planning to sell that power to destabilize entire regions. Anna felt a chill creep down her spine. And now we're in their way. Jonathan turned to her. We've been in their way from the start. But now we have leverage. He opened a secured file on the terminal, a draft of the public statement they would release by the end of the day. It included names, financial transfers, metadata, and a short video clip Anna had taken in her father's office the day of the poisoning attempt. It showed Wells subtly reaching into his pocket, glancing toward the glass of water. Too much truth all at once will get us silenced, Joe warned. We need to control the pacing. Release what we can, survive. Jonathan nodded. We'll start with the patent theft and offshore bribery. The assassination attempt stays quiet for now. Anna shook her head. Why protect them? We're not protecting them, Jonathan said. We're building the trap. Let them deny it publicly, then we drop the final proof. Later that afternoon, Kingsley Energy Tech's official press release went live across every major outlet. Jonathan stood before a bank of microphones, Anna beside him, their silhouettes framed by storm clouds behind the glass. The truth has a cost, he began, voice low but unwavering. But it's far less expensive than the price of silence. Over the past year, members of our own executive board engaged in fraudulent deals designed to undermine the integrity of our technology and compromise national security. We are pursuing criminal charges, and we are cooperating fully with federal authorities. Anna said nothing, but the camera lingered on her, a girl with braids, solemn eyes, and the weight of a nation's secrets in her silence. The backlash was immediate. Within an hour, Kingsley Tower's servers were hit with coordinated cyber attacks 10 times in 3 hours. Email systems went dark. Internal communications scrambled. Joe and his security team scrambled to isolate the breach and reroute backup systems. They're trying to shut us down before the second release, Joe growled, sweat beading on his forehead. I've never seen this level of aggression. This isn't just hackers, it's a digital strike team. Meanwhile, the board members named in the initial statement, Delaney, Rhodes, and 2 others, issued pre-recorded rebuttals through their attorneys, claiming Jonathan had misused a vulnerable child to stage a personal vendetta and accusing him of fabricating evidence to distract from poor leadership. Anna watched one of the videos, her jaw tightening. They're going to make it about me. Jonathan placed a hand on her shoulder. Let them try. The truth will outlive their spin. The next blow came not from the media, but from inside the Justice Department. Gerald Pace returned, this time not with support but with concern. You've stirred a hornet's nest, he said, his voice lower than usual. Certain names on those files? They link to people above my pay grade. Military-industrial complex types, senators, lobbyists. If you go public with the assassination attempt, I can't protect you. Jonathan's eyes darkened. So we're supposed to back down? I'm saying choose your battles, Pace replied. You've already exposed enough to put half your enemies in prison. But if you push too hard, too fast, you'll disappear into some back alley headline no one will question. Anna looked him in the eye. They tried to kill my father. We're not stopping. Pace hesitated, then nodded slowly. Then I'll do what I can. But tread carefully. This isn't a boardroom fight anymore. It's a war. That night, the storm outside grew heavier. Thunder rolled endlessly, and the city seemed to hold its breath. Anna sat on the balcony, legs curled beneath her, both chess pieces in her lap. She stared at the skyline, feeling the gravity of every choice pulling on her bones. She whispered to the rain, "It's our move now." And somewhere, beneath the shadows of power and profit, someone was listening. Morning dawned without sunlight, just a hazy gray blur that clung to the skyline like fogged glass. Kingsley Tower was still, too still for a building at war with its own past. The security scanners chirped less frequently. Footsteps echoed longer in the marble halls. People spoke in half-whispers, as if the walls themselves might be listening. Anna sat at the long glass table in her father's private briefing room, a steaming cup of cocoa in front of her. The chess pieces stood to her left, now more like totems than toys. Joe entered with a folder, his usual calm rattled. They tried again. Another phishing attempt, this time through an executive assistant's login. We caught it. Barely. Jonathan looked up from his tablet. They're getting desperate. Or confident, Joe replied. This time they used internal clearance codes. Someone on our current payroll is feeding them. Anna's eyes narrowed. Still playing mole, even after the press conference? Especially after, Joe said. They know what's coming. And they're trying to get ahead of it. Jonathan stood. Then we don't give them time. We go with the next wave. The assassination attempt. Joe hesitated. I thought we agreed. We delay any longer. We lose momentum. Jonathan interrupted. We show the footage. We name the handler. We burn it all down. Anna looked between them. I want to be the one to present it. Both men turned. You'll get attacked, Jonathan warned. Harder than ever. I don't care, she said. They already made me the symbol. I might as well write the meaning. That afternoon, in a private studio within the tower, Anna sat in front of a camera. The room was silent, thick with the weight of what she was about to do. A producer counted down with his fingers, and a red light blinked on. "My name is Anna Kingsley," she began, voice even, hands folded. "You've heard things about me. Some of them are true. Some of them aren't. But this isn't about me. It's about a truth someone tried to bury with poison and silence." The video played behind her, a short clip from the boardroom, slowed frame by frame. Wells glancing toward the glass, the subtle twitch of his fingers, the shifting of his eyes. Then a second clip, security footage of Anna digging through a waste bin, pulling out a crushed blister pack, holding it up, then a third. A micro-drone camera feed embedded in the teddy bear on Jonathan's desk. The conversation between Delaney and Rhodes, casual and cruel, discussing Jonathan's accidental overdose. Anna's voice returned. "They didn't just try to ruin my father. They tried to erase him. To sell the future to the highest bidder. But the future belongs to all of us." The video ended with one sentence on a black screen. "You deserve to know who tried to rewrite your reality." Within hours, it was everywhere. Cable news anchors debated it live. Podcasts dissected the footage frame by frame. Public opinion swung hard. Protests erupted outside the homes of board members. Investors panicked. 2 sitting senators issued formal statements calling for a federal inquiry. But with the light came shadows. A message arrived that night, tucked into a bouquet left at the tower lobby. No card, just a single white lily. Anna knew what it meant. So did Jonathan. "They're making it personal," he said, trying to scare us into silence. Anna didn't blink. "Then we speak louder." The next morning, Gerald Pace returned, not alone this time. He brought with him a woman in a dark blazer and no-nonsense demeanor. Her name was Alicia Ford, from a quiet but powerful department that rarely made public statements. The Federal Bureau of Energy Security. "I've been briefed," Alicia said. "We're escalating this to national emergency classification. We need your internal archives, encrypted files, and all project prototypes moved to a secure federal lab by midnight." Jonathan raised an eyebrow. "That's a tall order." "It's not a request," she replied. "You lit the match, Mr. Kingsley. Now we need to contain the fire." Anna stepped forward. "You're not trying to cover it up, are you?" Alicia looked at her carefully. "No, Miss Kingsley. I'm trying to keep you alive long enough to finish the story." Joe handed over the required drive. "Expect retaliation," Alicia said as she left. "And soon. You're not just threatening profits anymore. You're threatening leverage, global influence, power." That night, Jonathan took Anna to the rooftop. It was cold. The wind carried rain that hadn't yet fallen. Below them, the city pulsed and breathed like a sleeping animal. "I never wanted this for you," he said. "I built everything to protect you, not to drag you into it." "I know," she said, "but maybe I was born for this. Not to build walls, but to break through them." He looked at her, and for the first time in weeks, his eyes glistened. "You remind me of your mother," he said. Anna smiled softly. She'd have burned the whole boardroom down by now. They laughed quietly, the kind of laugh that only comes when fear and love sit at the same table. Below, in the night, unknown figures moved, and somewhere in the silence, someone watched the Red Queen rise. It started with a blackout. At precisely 2:17 a.m., Kingsley Tower went dark. Not just the lights, but the backup systems, the internal servers, the security grid. Emergency power flickered once, then failed. Outside, the city glowed faintly under a bruised sky, but inside the tower, it was as if the world had stopped breathing. Anna woke in a cold sweat. The silence was unnatural. She grabbed her flashlight and crept into the hallway. Down the corridor, red emergency strobes blinked like dying stars. From her earpiece, Joe's voice crackled through static. "Anna, stay put. We're under coordinated attack. This isn't just cyber. This is physical." Her pulse spiked. "Where's my dad?" "He's safe," but we've lost comms with the security floor. I need you to get to the vault room. Now. Anna ran. 20 floors down. The vault room housed duplicates of every file they'd prepared, every prototype design, every physical trace of the core project. Joe had prepared it weeks ago, just in case. Now that insurance policy was their last lifeline. As Anna reached the service elevator, a figure stepped into her path, tall, clad in black, visor down, weapon drawn. For a frozen moment, neither moved. Then she threw the flashlight. It struck the figure's shoulder. He stumbled. She darted past, slamming the emergency override on the elevator. The doors began to close, agonizingly slow. The man lunged, but too late. She descended in silence, heart pounding. When the elevator opened, she was alone until Joe emerged from the shadows, armed, sweating, eyes wild. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded. "How many are there?" "Too many for comfort," he said. They breached through the loading dock. "Whoever they are, they're not here to negotiate." Anna followed him down the corridor. They reached the vault, thick steel, biometric lock. Joe pressed his thumb, then a retinal scan. The door opened with a hiss. Inside, the air was colder. The room was lined with servers, fireproof cabinets, and a reinforced wall safe. Anna crossed to the far corner and grabbed the secure case, a slim black brief the size of a laptop. It contained the final failsafe, a portable drive with the entire core project, plus recordings, whistleblower testimonies, and the data trail linking their enemies to foreign operatives. She handed it to Joe. "Get this to Agent Ford. No matter what happens." He stared at her. "You're coming too." "No," she said. "I'm going to find my dad. They'll be after him." Joe hesitated, then handed her a slim GPS tag. "If anything goes wrong, press this. I'll find you." She ran again. Meanwhile, Jonathan was in the top floor safe room, watching the tower through infrared cameras. Alicia Ford stood beside him, gun holstered, eyes scanning code on a secured tablet. "They're inside your system," she said, moving faster than I expected. Jonathan narrowed his eyes. "Who are they working for?" She shook her head. "That's the terrifying part. No flags, no markers, no call signs. They're ghosts." Just then, the screen flickered. One by one, the camera feeds went dark. Alicia stepped away. "We need to move." But before they could exit, the lights in the room died. And from the vents above, smoke began to pour. Jonathan grabbed his phone. "Anna, where are you?" She was 2 floors down, ducking behind a marble pillar as 2 black-clad intruders stalked the hallway. She pressed the GPS button, whispered, "I'm close," and held her breath as the men passed. Then she ran again. By the time she reached the executive floor, the smoke was thicker. Alarms blaring. The door to the safe room was ajar. She burst in. Her father was on the floor, coughing violently. Alicia was trying to lift him. Anna didn't wait. She helped haul him up, threw his arm over her shoulder. "We have to get to the elevator," she gasped. Alicia nodded, led the way. They moved fast. Every hallway now a maze of flickering lights and choking smoke. But as they reached the stairwell, another figure appeared, gun raised. It was Rhodes. She looked different now. Stripped of the boardroom polish. Her expression was hard, primal. Her hand didn't tremble. "You should have stayed quiet, Jonathan," she said. "We had a plan." Jonathan coughed, eyes fierce. "You were willing to sell the world to murderers, and you were naive enough to think the truth would save you," she snapped. "Step aside, Anna." Anna stood in front of him. "Number," Rhodes sneered. "You don't understand the game." Anna reached into her pocket, pulled out the white knight chess piece, held it up like a shield. "This game isn't yours anymore." A shot rang out, but not from Rhodes. Alicia fired first. Rhodes fell, groaning, guns skidding across the floor. Anna didn't look away. She stepped over Rhodes, helped her father into the stairwell. By the time they reached the ground floor, federal agents were flooding the lobby, guns drawn, barking orders. Joe was already there, handing over the brief to a suited officer. Outside, The city was waking up to a new world. Jonathan collapsed into a stretcher. Anna held his hand. "It's over," she whispered. He looked at her, eyes glassy but proud. "No," he rasped. "It's just begun." And somewhere, in a bunker lit by monitors and maps, someone watched their every move and began to plan the next play. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and sterile linens. Machines beeped steadily around Jonathan's bed, a rhythm that echoed Anna's heartbeat as she sat beside him. Fingers wrapped around his pale hand, the bandages on his arm, the bruises blooming beneath his collar, each mark was a story of the night they'd survived. Outside the private room, federal agents stood guard. The world knew now about the poisoning, the sabotage, the attempted cover-up. News anchors called it the Kingsley coup. Public opinion shifted like a tide, and those who had once whispered behind closed doors were now shouting on courthouse steps. But Anna knew the storm hadn't passed. Not yet. Joe entered quietly, nodding at the nurse before leaning against the wall. His shirt was untucked, his face hollowed from lack of sleep. "I got a partial trace," he said, "from the rooftop signal we intercepted last night. The one triggered right after Rhodes went down." Anna's eyes met his. "And?" "It didn't come from the tower. It came from across the river, Jersey side, abandoned telecom relay station." She stood. "Let's go." Joe blinked. "You're kidding. We can't wait for them to regroup," she said. "Every second we sit, they move." Joe sighed, then offered her his phone. Alicia left instructions. "She'll meet us there in 1 hour. Bring nothing traceable." Anna leaned over and kissed her father's forehead. "I'll be back," she whispered. "We're finishing this." The drive to Jersey was quiet. The skyline receded behind them like a closing chapter, gray and bruised by the scars of conflict. Joe's SUV took back roads, winding through industrial ruins and graffiti-stained warehouses until they reached the relay station. The building looked dead. Rust ate at its frame. Antennas jutted out like broken bones. Alicia was already there, leaning against a black sedan, dressed in plain jeans and a field jacket. She held a small device in her hand, scanning the area. "Motion detectors are offline," she said without looking up, "but the signal pinged this place an hour after your broadcast. Someone used it as a relay, possibly to contact international assets." Anna stepped forward. "What are we looking for?" "Proof they're still moving," Alicia said. "Dates, routes, anything we can intercept." They entered together, Anna, Joe, and Alicia, flashlights slicing through the dark. Inside, the walls were lined with derelict servers and torn cabling. But deeper in the basement, behind a false panel, they found it, a command node, still humming, still warm. Joe's eyes lit up. This isn't just a relay. This was a field command center. He plugged in a portable decryptor. Data streamed onto his tablet, encrypted logs, communication threads, GPS tracking points. Alicia's brow furrowed. "There's a name that keeps popping up, redacted in every file. But whoever it is, they're flagged as the broker." Anna stepped closer. "The one pulling the strings?" "More than that," Alicia murmured. "The one who sells them." Suddenly, Joe stiffened. "Guys, I've got live data. Someone's trying to access the node remotely." Alicia swore. "Cut the connection. Now." Joe yanked the cable, just as a new message appeared on the screen. "Hello, Anna." Her blood froze. "How?" she whispered. The screen blinked again. "Still playing with knights and queens. But you haven't met the king." Alicia pulled Anna back. "We're compromised. Move." They bolted out of the building just as a low rumble shook the walls. The first explosion hit the west wing, fireballing into the sky. Anna dove behind the sedan as the shockwave punched through the lot. When she looked up, the relay station was a firestorm. Joe staggered to his feet, coughing. "They wiped it, burned everything." Alicia's face was grim. "They were watching us the whole time. Let us in." Then lit the match. Anna stood slowly, fury tightening her jaw. They wanted to send a message. Joe rubbed soot from his face. "Yeah. That they're still in control." "No," Anna said quietly. "That we're getting too close." Back in Manhattan, chaos continued to unravel. News broke that Delaney had disappeared from his penthouse. Federal warrants bounced off empty bank accounts. Entire chains of shell companies collapsed overnight. Someone was cleaning house fast, thorough, ruthless. Anna sat in her father's office, staring at the chessboard. The Black Queen still stood, so did the White Knight. But now a new piece had arrived left on the chair when she returned from Jersey. The King. She picked it up, cold, heavy. There was a note beneath it. Your move. She looked out the window, rain sliding down the glass like ink. Then let's end this game, she whispered. Checkmate's coming. The day after the relay station explosion, Manhattan pulsed with a strange tension. It was as if the city had paused mid-breath, uncertain whether to exhale in relief or brace for impact. Security outside Kingsley Tower had doubled. Federal agents moved in tighter formations. Even the lobby pianist had stopped showing up. Inside the executive conference room, Anna stood before a wall of holographic projections, her eyes moving between flight logs, bank records, and encrypted voice notes. The king piece sat beside her, unmoving but symbolic, a declaration of war. Jonathan, pale but recovering, watched her from a chair in the corner. This is what it's come to, he murmured. You, standing where I once did, planning a counterstrike. Anna didn't turn. I'm not planning revenge, Dad. I'm exposing them. He nodded slowly. That's the only difference that matters. Joe entered, tablet in hand. Got something. That command node we almost lost? I pulled a buried subdirectory. Obscure metadata. Mostly junk, except one string that repeated in multiple files. He tapped, and a name lit up the screen. Wallace Drake. Jonathan straightened. Drake? As in Drake Strategies? Former NSA, Joe said. Turned consultant for corporate intelligence. He's worked with half the Fortune 500 off the books. Anna frowned. Is he the broker? Unlikely, Joe replied. More like the gatekeeper. If there's a puppet master, Drake knows who's holding the strings. Alicia joined them moments later, trench coat still dripping from the downpour outside. She looked at the projection and whistled. Wallace Drake doesn't just hide secrets. He builds them. Fort Knox for shadow players. Anna crossed her arms. So where is he? Montauk, Alicia said. Retired, supposedly. Keeps a compound on a private beach. Surveillance dead zone. Even satellites get scrambled near his estate. Jonathan rubbed his temples. Then he's still in the game. A plan took shape quickly. They wouldn't go through agencies. No subpoenas, no court orders. This had to be clean covert. If they wanted the truth, they had to take it before it disappeared behind another firewall or another explosion. That night, under cover of fog and low tide, Anna, Joe, and Alicia made their way along the rocky shore of Montauk, boots crunching against damp pebbles. Ahead, Drake's compound loomed modern, angular, tucked into cliffs like a crouching beast. Joe disabled the motion sensors. Alicia picked the lock on the back gate. Anna carried only a flash drive and the king chess piece in her coat pocket. Inside, the house was silent. Too silent. No alarms, no dogs. Just the soft hum of hidden machines. They found Drake in a glass-paneled room overlooking the sea. He was sitting in a leather chair, sipping scotch, as if he'd been expecting them. Anna stepped forward. Mr. Drake. He smiled without warmth. You look like your mother. Her fists clenched. Then you know why I'm here. He gestured to the empty seat across from him. I do. And I'm not here to stop you. Joe and Alicia exchanged glances but said nothing. Drake leaned forward. You want names, connections, the why behind the chaos. Anna nodded once. And the king, Drake chuckled. There is no king, Miss Kingsley. Only buyers and sellers. You think it's a game? It's not. It's a marketplace. Then give us the list, she said. We end the marketplace. Drake stared at her for a long moment, then opened a drawer and withdrew a data key. This is everything, he said. Private contracts, political influencers, offshore assets, who paid whom, and who died because of it. Anna took it. Why help us? Because someone's finally willing to play outside the rules, he said. And because my legacy doesn't need more shadows. As they turned to leave, he added one final warning. But understand this, you reveal this, and the world won't cheer. It'll break. People like comfort more than truth. Anna looked back at him. Then let it break. At least it'll be honest. Back in Manhattan, they decrypted the drive in a soundproof bunker beneath the tower. What they found was worse than expected. Named CEOs, senators, foreign dignitaries, lobbyists, contracts for assassinations, blackmail payments, policy manipulation through private intelligence firms. Even internal memos from federal agencies marked eyes only leaked to buyers for leverage. Joe looked pale. This is treason. On a global scale, Alicia whispered. This is why they kept killing. Because if this ever saw daylight, Anna closed the file, then it will see daylight, and not as a press release, as a trial. Jonathan watched her, pride and fear mingling in his eyes. You've gone further than I ever did, he said. And you're still standing. Not for long, Anna replied. They'll come harder now. He nodded. Then we stand together. The Kingsleys, once hunted, now hunted back. And the final war for truth was only days away. The courtroom was packed. Not with judges or jurors yet, but with anticipation. Reporters crowded the gallery, cameras trained on the defense table, and every pew held stakeholders from across the globe: investors, activists, lobbyists who had been splintered by the revelations. Anna sat front row, legs swinging mildly, white knight and black queen chess pieces pressed into her palms. Her father sat beside her, recovery slow but present, his eyes still faint. They were the unexpected witnesses, the spark in a blaze of institutional decay. The judge entered, robes whispering across the floor like a promise. Jonathan leaned close to Anna as the formalities began. Remember, truth isn't loud, but it echoes, he said softly. She nodded, shoulders squared. When the gavel dropped, the first to be called was Wallace Drake. He walked in as cool as ever, head held, dossier in hand. No theatrics, just facts. He began recounting the architecture of corruption, how deals were brokered behind closed doors using his intelligence network, how they manipulated energy policy, government contracts, even security directives. Drake's testimony alone would plant seeds of systemic reformation. And as he spoke, shockwaves pulsed through the courtroom. Next came Gerald Pace from the DOJ and Alicia Ford representing the Bureau of Energy Security. Their voices, measured and calm, guided the court through the forensic terror, shell accounts, secret disappearances, digital purges, and threats of violence. When Rhodes and Delaney were escorted in, prosecutors played the boardroom footage, the poisoning attempt, the password files, the assault at the pier. The room went silent. Audrey, hush on lives that had once thrived in polished power, saw its reflection in raw, unforgiving truth. Then came Anna's moment. She stood unsteadily, her voice softer than expected but resolute. When they placed the king and knight on my chessboard, I saw my place in a game I didn't start, she said. I watched. I listened. I refused to fold to shadows. Because I knew, truth isn't about winning. It's about refusing to stop playing. She held the two pieces forward, letting the judge and the room absorb the symbolism. An innocent act, defying manipulation. When she finished, the courtroom exhaled, as if holding its breath for decades. Later that afternoon, jurors began deliberations. Outside, headlines bled into billboards and live broadcasts. Child savior sparking institutional reckoning. Energy empire purged of corruption. Truth wins. A family stand against global covert ops. Anna and Jonathan walked home in silence, hand in hand, the chess pieces now resting on the dashboard like talismans. That night, in the penthouse, they sat at the dining table over cold tea, exhaustion and relief serving dinner. Jonathan looked at Anna, eyes soft. You changed the game, he said. She smiled, tired but brave. Now the rulebook changes too. On the kitchen counter, Anna aligned the chess pieces, knight, queen, and now the king beside them. They formed a silent coalition, much bigger than a game. They represented discipline, power, and strategy united. From a small girl in braided ponytails to a symbol of truth amid towering greed, Anna's journey had become legend, not because she overcame, but because she refused to cower. The next dawn would bring verdicts. But tonight, the board was reset, and the future had become something worth fighting for. The verdict arrived like a distant thunderclap gavel, striking silence into an already tense courtroom. Jonathan, seated next to Anna, exhaled slowly as the bailiff rang the bell. We, the jury, find the defendants Rhodes, Delaney, and their co-conspirators guilty on all counts of conspiracy, attempted murder, corporate fraud, and high-level corruption. Anna closed her eyes, her breath trembling as relief washed over her. The courtroom erupted into a subdued roar, reporters flashing cameras, attorneys embracing, and finally, Jonathan slipping an arm around his daughter. Outside, the world reacted fast. News tickers scrolled headlines. Kingsley daughter wins historic verdict. Empire cleansed, justice prevails. Child warrior inspires national ethics movement. Talk shows declared Anna the new moral compass for an era starving for integrity. Back in her father's office, Anna sat with a whiteboard full of names, former conspirators, exposed participants, now cycling through FBI indictments and resignations. The chessboard on the table had grown crowded, the queen and knight still poised in defiance, now joined by the king. Jonathan watched her, amazement and pride warring on his face. "You did more than win," he said quietly. "You showed people that courage isn't reserved for heroes in history books. It comes from the quiet refusal to stay silent." Anna leaned back, gaze steady. "This isn't the end," she said. "We've shut down one network, but the structures that let it grow are still out there." The next few weeks, they diverted every resource into rebuilding their company's integrity and helping draft legal reforms to prevent future abuses. They testified before congressional hearings. They partnered with advocacy groups. And amid it all, Anna's quiet influence grew. She spoke at ethics conferences, served youth programs, and started mentoring girls from underrepresented communities. One afternoon, as she walked through the restored Kingsley Energy Tech lobby that now bore through glass portraits of whistleblowers and fair play, she bumped into Joe. He handed her a small cardboard box. Inside was the Black Queen chess piece. It had fallen, cracked during the trial's closing moment. She ran her fingers over the fracture. "It's still standing," she said. Joe nodded. "Just needed a little glue." Anna smiled, feeling the weight of it in her palm. That night, in the penthouse, Jonathan and Anna stood on the balcony. The skyline stretched out beneath them, calm, lit, healing. "I used to think empires were built on dominance," he said. "But maybe this one, ours, was built on truth." Anna looked up. "Let's keep it that way." On the bedside table, the chess pieces stood in formation. Knight, queen, king together for now. Guardians of the balance they'd restored, and of a legacy they'd redefined. At the edge of the city, the world exhaled. And somewhere, new stories of courage were just beginning to form. Early youth programs often begin with warm chaos, laughter, spilled paint, and vibrant energy. But today, the auditorium at the community center near the Bronx was nearly still. The crowd, mostly older adults in folding chairs, watched in rapt attention as Anna Kingsley, 10-year-old hero turned youth mentor, stepped to the podium. Her braids were braided back in a neat knot, a splash of pink light in her cheeks. She stood tall, hands gripping the edges of the lectern, chest open like a flame-resisting wind. "Thank you," she said, voice clear. "When I started this journey, I never thought I'd be here telling you what to do. I just wanted to save my dad." A hush, but I learned something. Saving one person can change a whole world. Her audience smiled, eyes bright. They didn't need explanations in headlines. They had seen the ballot boxes swing, watched the courts tremble, and understood that truth when held by the smallest hands could shake pillars. Backstage, Jonathan watched her from the side door. His face was tired, carried by years he hadn't fully felt. The boardroom battles, federal indictments, legislative hearings all had pushed him beyond the walls of money into the realm of legacy. And this, watching Anna connect with older adults, inspiring them to volunteer, advocate, and now fund a youth justice scholarship, felt like the real work. 3 rows back, Joe leaned over. "She's got a gift," he said softly. To make you feel like you never stopped being the hero. Jonathan nodded. She passed it on. On stage, Anna held out a small golden award. "This is for Mrs. Fletcher," she announced, "for teaching me that stories matter and helping me find my own voice." Mrs. Fletcher, a retired teacher, stood, tears in her eyes. Anna handed her a carved trophy of a student reading, light shining through pages. It was simple, honest, and powerful. Later, in the reception, tables glowed with soup and bread donated by local sponsors. The room buzzed with conversation about justice, ethics, and youth. Anna floated through, offering hugs, shaking hands, smiling with ease like she'd always belonged here. Jonathan approached her at a small table lined with scholarship flyers titled, "The Anna Kingsley Ethical Future Fund." "You don't owe any of this to us," he said gently. She looked up. "We owe it to them." He pulled her close. "Let's go home," he said, voice tender. At home, in the penthouse living room, they found a modest package waiting on the coffee table. Inside, 2 more chess pieces, a white bishop and a black rook. No note. Just quiet. Anna picked them up, turning them over in her hands. "New players," she whispered. Jonathan smiled. "Looks like they're watching the board." Anna arranged all 5 pieces, knight, queen, king, bishop, rook, in a quiet semicircle on the polished table. Not dominance or hierarchy, but unity, a new world shaped by shared strength. Sometime later, Anna sat on the balcony at dusk. The building lights blinked like fireflies around her. She held the knight in one hand, the rook in the other. "It's not just about fighting power," she murmured into the dark. "It's about building balance." A soft voice answered from behind her. "Balance," Jonathan echoed. "That's how we become stronger." She turned, smiling. He joined her, and together they watched the city breathe quiet, healing, evolving. And in that gentle silence, the board had only just begun to rewrite itself. The early morning sun scattered through the penthouse window, painting the room in soft strokes of gold. Anna stood by the chessboard on the dining table, gently turning the newly added bishop and rook between her fingers. Their smooth surfaces seemed to pulse with possibility. "Checkmate didn't come from crushing the board," she murmured. "It came from rebuilding it." Jonathan joined her, fresh from a meeting with congressional aides and federal mandate strategists. His face, though worn, glowed with quiet victory. "We're drafting a National Whistleblower Protection Act," he said softly. "Inspired by you, of course." Anna smiled, a warmth in her eyes that mirrored her father's prides. They spent the morning taking attendance at the scholarship committee, handing out grants to teenagers pursuing ethics, civic leadership, and STEM for the underserved. Each handshake carried the weight of courage she believed everyone deserved. Later, in her room, Anna opened her diary. She paused on the first page, written just before the boardroom meltdown. "I don't know what's coming, but I know I can't be silent anymore." She read those words and finally felt the shift in her heart, the acceptance that her voice had always mattered, even when she doubted it. That afternoon, Joe knocked and entered, carrying a small envelope. "For you." He offered it gently. Anna opened it to find a photograph her and her dad, taken at the Coney Island pier years ago. They were laughing, sugar cone between them. On the back, typed in neat letters, "Never forget how far you've come." Tears sprang to her eyes. "That was from your mom," Joe said quietly. "She kept copies in her files. She'd always laugh about how you made her sea salt ice cream cone melt faster than anyone she'd ever seen." Anna's smile trembled. "I wish I'd met her." "They're not memories lost," he said. "You carry her." That evening, the penthouse glowed with warmth. Jonathan and Anna cooked a simple dinner, pasta, garlic, a sprinkle of Parmesan. Music played softly in the background. For years, high-level decisions and cold corporate strategies had filled these rooms. Now, there was laughter, sauce, and the smell of fresh basil. After dinner, they moved to the balcony. The city stretched out below, humming in harmony. Anna held the chess pieces, knight, queen, king, bishop, rook, stroking them thoughtfully. "Do we keep playing?" she asked. Jonathan took her hand. "Only if the board is fair now." They lowered the pieces gently back into place. Below, a neighbor called goodnight. Anna turned and waved. smiling wide as only 10-year-olds can. Inside, they settled into the living room. Jonathan reached over for her hand. "You taught me more than I ever learned in boardrooms," he whispered. "You taught me when to surrender to shame, to fear, and when to stand." Anna rested her head against his shoulder. "I learned it from you," she replied softly. "You taught me that legacy isn't built on empires. It's built on trust." They sat in silence, the city lights flickering like a promise. Somewhere, the world was waking to a new day, and in that quiet, healed space, the board remained intact, not for power, but for the truth. Together, they had reset the pieces, and together, they would play a new game, one guided by justice, heart, and hope. Sunlight filtered gently through the curtains of the penthouse bedroom. For the first time in weeks, the day didn't arrive with alarms, threats, or urgency. It just arrived. Anna stretched under the soft warmth, the memory of last night's peace lingering like a lullaby. She rose, wandered to the window, and looked out over the city. Below, the streets hummed with normal life again, cafes filling, children walking to school, people heading to work. The world had steadied itself around her, and she felt the weight of that peace in her chest. In the living room, Jonathan was already awake. He stood by the kitchen island, holding 2 steaming mugs. He turned when he saw her. Near him, on the chessboard, stood the knight, queen, king, bishop, and rook, the family's new council of truth. "Good morning," he said simply, voice warm. She accepted the mug and nodded. They sipped hot chocolate in silence before she spoke. "We did it," she said, not proudly, but gently. "We changed something." Jonathan's eyes shone. "You did it." Later that morning, they reviewed the final charts and press clippings. Legal reforms passed, whistleblower protections enacted, scholarship applications flooding their inbox. Youth voices were rising. The seeds Anna had sown were sprouting. Anna checked her watch and grinned. "Let's go out." She changed into jeans and a favorite hoodie. Jonathan slipped into a casual sweater. Hand in hand, they stepped into the elevator and descended into a city that finally felt forgiving. They walked to the nearby park, sunlight dancing through early leaves, laughter spilling from playgrounds, old couples strolling arm in arm. Anna paused at a painted bench. It bore a plaque. "In honesty we trust." Part of a new public art initiative funded by the Kingsley Foundation. She ran her fingers across the letters. "That's ours now," she said. A little boy ran by, dropped his book, and she bent to pick it up. He pressed it back into her hands, shyly. "Thank you." She smiled, straightened. "You're welcome." Jonathan watched her and felt something settle deep beneath his ribs, not relief. Something stronger, pride without pressure, purpose without fear. They found a bench under a sprawling oak and sat, soft breeze staining the afternoon gold. Anna looked down at the chess pieces tucked in her coat pocket, symbols of battles won, but now silent. "Do you think the game's over?" she murmured. He squeezed her hand. "The fights will keep coming, but now, you'll face them from a place of truth, not fear." She looked up at him. "Want to play a final move?" He raised an eyebrow. "Always." She pulled the knight from her pocket and gently set it beside the king. 2 moments, 1 act. The child's courage anchoring the parent's integrity. Around them, life continued, no explosions, no threats. Just the rhythm of ordinary people living honest lives. Anna leaned her head on Jonathan's shoulder. "Dad?" He kissed her head. "Promise me. This time, we always protect each other. No more shadows." He nodded, voice steady. "Always." They sat in that park as the sun warmed them, surrounded by hope that felt quieter, but more enduring than any battle cry. Here, in the soft glow of a new beginning, they closed their story not with fireworks, but with gratitude. And in the hush, the world listened. The story of Anna and Jonathan Kingsley teaches us that true power lies not in wealth or influence, but in courage, integrity, and the willingness to stand up for what is right, even when the odds are overwhelming. Through a child's unwavering sense of justice, we are reminded that change often begins with one voice refusing to be silent. It is a powerful testament to the strength of family, the resilience of truth, and the enduring hope that justice, no matter how delayed, can prevail.